The gun was 3 inches from Sienna's face when she stopped breathing. Cold steel, matte black, the kind of weapon that didn't miss. She'd been running for 3 days, burning phones, dyeing her hair in gas station bathrooms, sleeping in her car with a tire iron across her lap. 3 days since she'd watched a man die in an alley behind the Borgata casino. 3 days since the shooter's mercury gray eyes had locked onto hers through the rain. And now he'd found her. The diner in Trenton went silent, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of burnt coffee and fear. Sienna's hand froze halfway to her coffee mug, her reflection distorted in the black surface of the gun barrel. The man holding it didn't blink. 6'3", shoulders like a linebacker, a scar cutting down his jaw like someone had taken their time, dark eyes that had seen the bottom of the world and climbed back up. Dominic Calvetti, the Reaper, the Italian Mafia's most efficient killer. His voice was gravel and finality. Stand up. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I said stand up, Sienna. The sound of her own name in his mouth was a death sentence. Her chair screeched against linoleum as she stood, legs shaking, every eye in the diner suddenly fascinated with their plates. He didn't lower the gun, just gestured toward the door with 2 fingers. Outside, black Escalade. You have 5 seconds before I stop being polite. Please. Her voice cracked. I didn't see anything. 4 seconds. I won't tell anyone. 3. She ran, not toward the door, toward the kitchen. Survival instinct overriding logic. She made it 6 feet. His hand locked around her wrist like iron, spinning her back, and suddenly she was against his chest, his gun pressed between them, his other hand gripping the back of her neck. Not violent, not cruel, just absolute. I'm trying, he said quietly, voice like smoke, to keep you alive. Stop fighting me. The diner door burst open. 2 men, Irish accents, guns already drawn. Dominic moved. He shoved Sienna behind the counter, hard enough she hit the floor, and fired 3 times before she could scream. The sound was deafening. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Then silence. Dominic grabbed her arm, hauled her up, and dragged her through the kitchen, through the back door, into the rain-slick parking lot where the Escalade sat idling. He threw open the door, shoved her inside. You're mine now, he said, voice heavy and unavoidable. Don't fight it. The door slammed, and Sienna Cross disappeared into the dark. 72 hours earlier, Sienna Cross had been a cocktail waitress in Atlantic City. She'd stepped outside for air she didn't need, with a cigarette she didn't smoke, and watched a man in a $5,000 suit die with his eyes open. The shooter had gray eyes, mercury, the color of bullets before they're fired, and he'd looked directly at her. She ran, smashed her phone, dyed her hair in a gas station bathroom, slept in her car with a tire iron for 3 days. But the man in the diner wasn't the shooter. He was worse. Dominic Calvetti, the Reaper, the Italian Mafia's most efficient killer. And as the Escalade carried her into the dark, one question burned in her mind. If he wasn't sent to kill her, why did he know her name? The safe house was 2 hours south, buried in the Pine Barrens, where the trees grew so thick the moonlight couldn't reach the ground. The cabin was small, cedar shingled, windows narrow. Off the grid. The kind of place you brought someone when you wanted them erased from the world. He cut the zip tie once they were inside. Sienna stumbled away from him, back hitting the wall, eyes wild. What promise? The man closed the door, locked it. 3 deadbolts. He shrugged out of his coat and hung it on a hook, revealing a shoulder holster and the matte black grip of a Sig Sauer. You're safe here, he said, ignoring her question. There's food in the kitchen, bathrooms through there, clothes in the bedroom. You'll stay until I say otherwise. You can't just... I can. He turned to face her fully, And for the first time, she saw something flicker in those dark eyes. Something old, something that hurt. You're alive because I decided you would be. Don't waste it. I want answers. You want to survive. I want to know why you didn't kill me. Her voice cracked on the last word, echoing in the small space. He went very still. Then he crossed the room, slow, deliberate, until he was standing close enough that she could smell gunpowder and rain, and something darker underneath. Leather, smoke, old blood. He studied her face, her eyes, the slope of her cheekbones, the trembling line of her mouth. And when he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Because you have her eyes. Sienna froze. Whose eyes? But he was already turning away, walking toward the hallway, boots heavy on the wood floor. Get some sleep, Sienna. Whose eyes? He stopped in the doorway, didn't look back. Your mother's. The door to the bedroom closed, and Sienna stood alone in a cabin in the woods, hands still shaking, heart still racing, staring at the space where a killer had just spoken her dead mother's name. Sienna didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of a bed she hadn't made, in a room that smelled like cedar and dust and something faintly medicinal, iodine maybe, or the ghost of old bandages, and watched the window. The glass was narrow, reinforced, the kind that didn't break easy. Beyond it, the pine barrens stretched into darkness so complete, it felt like the edge of the world. No streetlights, no highway glow, just trees and silence, and the occasional creak of the cabin settling around her like a living thing. The man, she still didn't have a name, hadn't come back. She'd heard him moving through the house for the first hour, footsteps in the kitchen, the low murmur of a phone call in a language she didn't recognize. Russian, maybe. Then nothing, just the wind in the pines and the hammer of her own pulse. Because you have her eyes. Her mother, Elena Cross, dead 16 years. Sienna had been 8 when it happened. Car accident, they'd said. Black ice on Route 130. Gone, before the ambulance arrived. Her father had never talked about it, never kept photos, just moved them to Florida 6 months later and started over. And Sienna had learned not to ask questions. But this man, this killer, had looked at her like he was seeing a ghost. She stood, legs unsteady, and moved to the dresser. The clothes he'd mentioned were there, folded. Women's clothes, jeans in her size, a sweatshirt, underwear still in the package, socks, everything clean, practical, chosen by someone who'd paid attention. Her stomach twisted. How long had he been watching her? She changed quickly, peeling off the damp waitress uniform that reeked of fryer oil and fear, pulling on the jeans and sweatshirt like armor. The fabric was soft, expensive, the kind of thing she couldn't afford on a cocktail waitress salary. When she stepped into the hallway, the cabin was dark except for a single light in the kitchen. He was sitting at a small wooden table, back to the wall, a laptop, open in front of him. No gun visible, but she knew it was there. Men like him didn't go unarmed. He didn't look up. There's coffee, he said. And food if you're hungry. Sienna stayed in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten in 12 hours? How would you know? Because I've been watching you for 3 days. He closed the laptop, finally meeting her eyes. Wawa in Pennsauken, Dunkin' on Route 1, the diner tonight. You ordered eggs every time, didn't finish them. Her skin crawled. You're insane. I'm thorough. You're a stalker. I'm the reason you're not in a crawlspace in Kearney with a bullet in your skull. His voice didn't rise, didn't need to. Sit down, Sienna. It wasn't a request. She sat. He stood, moving to the counter, pouring her a mug of coffee without asking how she took it. Black, 2 sugars. He set it in front of her, and she stared at it like it might be poisoned. How do you know how I drink my coffee? I know a lot of things. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, studying her with that same unnerving stillness. "You want answers. I get that. But right now, you need to understand the situation you're in. I didn't do anything. You were in the wrong place. That's enough." He tilted his head toward the window. "Out there, you're worth $500,000. Dead or alive doesn't matter. The Irish want you gone because you're a witness. The feds want you because you're leverage. And there are 3 families in North Jersey who'd trade you like currency if it meant avoiding a war." Sienna's hands tightened around the mug. "So what, I just hide here forever?" "You hide here until I fix it." "And if you can't?" Something flickered in his eyes. Something dark and final. "I will." The certainty in his voice was terrifying. Not because it was loud, but because it was absolute. Like he'd already played out every scenario and knew exactly how each one ended. She forced herself to ask the question that had been burning in her chest since the diner. "Who was she?" "My mother." "How did you know her?" His jaw tightened. For a long moment, he didn't answer, just stared at the floor like he was deciding how much truth she could handle. Then he moved to the table and set something down in front of her. A file folder? Manila, worn at the edges. "Open it." Sienna's hands shook as she pulled it toward her, flipping it open. Photographs spilled out. Her mother. Younger than Sienna had ever seen her. Mid-20s maybe? Dark hair pulled back, standing outside a restaurant Sienna didn't recognize. Another photo. Elena laughing, head tilted, sunlight catching the gold hoops in her ears. Another. Elena with a man Sienna didn't know. His arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling like the world was theirs. And then, a photo of a little girl, blonde curls, gap-toothed smile, holding a stuffed rabbit. Sienna's breath caught. "That's me." "You were 7?" he said quietly. "Your mother took that picture 3 weeks before she died." Sienna's vision blurred. "Where did you get these?" "I kept them." "Why?" He didn't answer. She flipped through more pages, documents, addresses, a birth certificate. Hers, but the father's name was listed as unknown. School records from an elementary school in Newark she barely remembered. A medical report from a hospital visit when she was 6. "You've been watching me since I was a child?" "I've been keeping you safe?" "That's not the same thing." "It's the only thing that matters." His voice hardened just a fraction. "Your mother didn't die in a car accident, Sienna." The room tilted. "What?" "She was murdered, made to look like an accident. Black ice, lost control, case closed." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on hers. "But I knew better. Because I was there. I saw the brake lines. Saw the way the car was positioned. It wasn't random." Sienna couldn't breathe. "Why would someone kill her?" "Because she saw something she shouldn't have." "What? What did she see?" "The same thing you did." He paused. "A man die in an alley." The words hit like a fist. Sienna pushed back from the table, chair screeching, hands trembling so hard she had to clench them into fists. No, you're lying." "I'm not." "My father said—" "Your father was witness protection." The words fell like stones. His real name was Gerald Kozlov. He worked for the U.S. Marshals. Your mother witnessed a hit when she was 24. They relocated her, gave her a new identity, paired her with Kozlov to make it look legitimate. You were part of the cover. Sienna's legs gave out. She sank back into the chair, the room spinning, the floor no longer solid beneath her feet. "That's impossible." "It's the truth." "Then who?" Her voice cracked. "Who was my real father?" He hesitated, and in that hesitation, she saw it. The guilt, the weight, the thing he'd been carrying for 16 years. "I don't know," he said finally. "Your mother never told me." "But you loved her." It wasn't a question. He didn't deny it. Yes. The silence stretched, sharp and fragile. Sienna stared at the photographs, at her mother's face, at the ghost of a life she'd never known. Why didn't you save her? His hands curled into fists on the table. I tried. Not hard enough. The words were cruel. She knew it. But they came out anyway, barbed and vicious. And she watched them land. He didn't flinch, didn't defend himself, just nodded slowly. You're right. And somehow, that was worse. The storm hit an hour before dawn. Sienna had retreated to the bedroom, exhausted and hollowed out. But sleep still wouldn't come. She lay on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain hammer the roof like fists. Then the lights went out. She sat up, heart lurching, darkness, complete, absolute. And then footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming down the hall. The door opened. His silhouette filled the frame, backlit by the faint gray glow of the storm beyond the kitchen window. Power's out, he said, voice low. Lines go down in weather like this. It'll come back by morning. Okay. He didn't leave. You afraid of the dark? No. Good. He stepped inside, and she heard the rustle of fabric, the soft thud of boots hitting the floor. Because I'm staying in here. Her pulse spiked. What? No? There's one exit. I'm not leaving it unguarded. He moved to the armchair in the corner, settling into it like he'd done this 100 times. Go to sleep, Sienna. I'm not going to sleep with you watching me. Then don't sleep. But I'm not leaving. She wanted to argue, wanted to scream. But the truth was, the darkness felt heavier now, the silence louder, and some traitorous part of her felt safer with him there. She lay back down, pulling the blanket to her chin, hyper-aware of every breath, every shift of fabric. Minutes passed, then quietly. What's your name? A pause. Dominic. Dominic what? Calvetti? The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it, flat, final, told her it should. Why are you really doing this? She whispered. Keeping me alive, risking whatever you're risking. It's not just about my mother. The storm filled the silence. Then, so quiet, she almost didn't hear it. She asked me to leave. The life, the family, everything. Said if I loved her, I'd walk away. His voice was raw, stripped down. I told her I couldn't, that it wasn't that simple. She left anyway, took you, went into witness protection, and a week later she was dead. Sienna's throat tightened. I made a promise, he continued, standing over her grave, that if she'd left anything behind, anything that mattered, I'd protect it, no matter what. I'm not a thing. No. A pause. You're all I have left of her. The words settled between them, heavy and aching. Sienna closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 days, she felt the exhaustion win. She woke to daylight and the smell of food, eggs, toast, coffee. Dominic was in the kitchen, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd cooked in far worse conditions. He glanced up when she appeared in the doorway. You need to eat? She sat without arguing this time, too tired to fight. He set a plate in front of her, scrambled eggs the way she liked them, dry toast, coffee, black, 2 sugars. She picked up the fork and froze, because on the counter, half hidden beneath a dish towel, was a phone. Dominic followed her gaze. Their eyes met. Go ahead, he said quietly. Call someone. FBI. Your brother. Anyone you want. Her hand hovered over the fork. Why would you let me do that? Because you need to understand something. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I'm not keeping you prisoner. You can walk out that door right now. I won't stop you. Then what's stopping me? The 5 men sitting in a car 2 miles up the road? His voice was calm, matter of fact. Irish crew, waiting to see if you run. If you do, you'll make it maybe half a mile before they put you in a trunk. Her blood went cold. You're bluffing. I'm not. He pulled his own phone from his pocket, swiped, turned it toward her. A surveillance photo. Grainy, but clear enough. A dark sedan, New Jersey plates. 4 men inside, one leaning against the hood, cigarette in hand. Timestamp, 6:47 a.m. 30 minutes ago. Sienna's appetite vanished. How did they find us? They didn't. They're watching the road. Waiting. He pocketed the phone. This is what I'm telling you, Sienna. You're not safe out there. You're barely safe here. And until I figure out who put the bounty on you and why, this is the best option you've got. So I'm just supposed to trust you? No. He met her, eyes. You're supposed to survive. The call came at noon. Dominic's phone buzzed once, sharp and insistent. He answered without looking at the screen, voice flat. Talk. Sienna couldn't hear the other side, but she watched his face change, jaw tightening, eyes going dark. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. Then quieter. You're sure? He hung up, turned to her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something in his expression that terrified her. Not anger, concern. What? She whispered. Get your shoes. What's happening? We're leaving. Dominic? Now, Sienna. She didn't argue. Just ran to the bedroom, grabbed the sneakers he'd left for her, jammed her feet inside. When she came back, he was at the window, Sig Sauer in hand, scanning the tree line. What did they say? The bounty doubled. He didn't look at her. Someone wants you alive. Badly. Who? I don't know yet. He turned, grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, tossed it to her. But we're about to find out. Headlights cut through the trees. Dominic went still. Then, so quietly, it was almost a whisper. Stay down. The door exploded inward. The door didn't just open. It detonated. Splinters and deadbolt fragments sprayed across the room as the frame buckled inward, and Sienna hit the floor behind the kitchen counter before her brain caught up with her body. Her palms slammed against worn wood, the impact jolting up through her wrists, and somewhere in the chaos, she heard Dominic's voice. Calm, controlled, lethal. Stay down, don't move, don't breathe loud. Then, gunfire. Not the movie kind, not dramatic. Just brutal percussion. Crack, crack, crack. Sharp reports that punched holes in the physics of the small cabin and turned the air into a living thing that pressed against her eardrums. Sienna squeezed her eyes shut, hands over her head, every muscle locked. This is how I die. But Dominic was already moving. She heard his boots, fast, purposeful, crossing the room in 3 strides. Heard the thump of a body hitting the doorframe. A wet, choking sound. Then his voice, low and venomous, speaking words she didn't understand. Russian? A question. A scream. Then silence. Sienna, eyes on me. She looked up. Dominic stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the gray morning light. His Sig Sauer was still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. At his feet, a man in a black tactical jacket lay crumpled, face down, one arm stretched toward a fallen shotgun he'd never reach again. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and spreading. Dominic didn't look at the body, just at her. How many fingers am I holding up? She blinked. Her ears were ringing. What? Fingers, Sienna, focus. He held up 3. 3, she whispered. Good, you're not in shock. Get up. She tried. Her legs were jelly. He crossed to her in 2 strides, gripped her arm, hauled her upright with the kind of strength that didn't ask permission. His hand was steady. Warm. The only solid thing in a world that had just tilted sideways. Listen to me. His face was inches from hers, eyes locked, voice low and fast. There are 3 more outside, maybe 4. They came in 2 vehicles, Suburban and a sedan. They're not cops, not feds. Private contractors, Irish crew, probably McGrath family. But they're sloppy. That's why I heard them coming. You heard them? Gravel on the access road. Engines too quiet. They cut the ignition a quarter mile out and coasted. He released her, moved to the window, scanning. They sent the expendable one first. Test the defenses. Now they know I'm armed and capable. They'll regroup. 30 seconds, maybe less. Sienna's pulse hammered. What do we do? We leave. How? They're outside. There's a back exit. Storm cellar. Leads to the tree line. He grabbed the duffel bag, slung it over his shoulder, checked his weapon. You stay behind me. You don't stop. You don't look back. If I go down, you run south. There's a fire road 2 miles through the woods. Follow it east until you hit Route 206. Flag down a truck, not a car. Truckers don't ask questions. If you go down, I won't. He looked at her, and for half a second something softened in his eyes. But if I do, you survive. Understand? She nodded, throat too tight to speak. Good. Move. The storm cellar was a concrete mouth in the floor of the hallway, hidden beneath a rug that smelled like mildew and forgotten winters. Dominic yanked it open, revealing a ladder descending into darkness that reeked of wet earth and rust. Down. Now. Sienna climbed. Her hands found metal rungs slick with condensation, and she descended into the black, her sneakers splashing into 2 inches of standing water at the bottom. The cellar was narrow, barely wide enough for one person, and stretched toward a dim gray rectangle 20 feet ahead. Daylight, the exit. Dominic dropped down behind her, boots hitting the water with a muted splash. Above them, the cabin floor creaked. Footsteps. Multiple. He put a hand on her shoulder, squeezed once. Quiet. They moved. Through the dark, Sienna's breath coming in shallow gasps. Her heartbeat so loud she was sure the men above could hear it. The water soaked through her sneakers, freezing, and something brushed against her ankle. Moss, maybe, or something worse. But she didn't stop. The exit was a rusted hatch, angled into the hillside, camouflaged with pine needles and dirt. Dominic reached past her, tested it. The hinges protested, but he moved slowly, controlled, easing it open inch by inch, until there was a gap wide enough to slip through. Cold air flooded in, rain, the smell of pine and wet soil. He went first, weapon raised, scanning, then gestured, clear. Sienna climbed out into a world painted in shades of gray. The storm had softened to drizzle, mist clinging to the trees like gauze. Behind them, the cabin sat silent, windows dark. No movement. But somewhere close, she heard voices. Dominic's hand found the small of her back, guiding her into the tree line. They moved fast, feet silent on the carpet of wet pine needles, weaving between trunks that rose like pillars in a cathedral of shadows. 50 feet, 100, then, crack, gunfire, not at them. At the cabin. Sienna flinched, but Dominic didn't slow. Just kept moving, his hands steady against her spine, his breathing controlled. They're clearing the rooms, he murmured. Realizing we're gone. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they start searching the perimeter. Can we outrun them? We don't have to. He stopped, pulled her down behind a fallen log thick as a car, and unslung the duffel. We just have to be smarter. He unzipped it. Inside, 3 magazines for the SIG, a knife, a second pistol, smaller, a Glock 43, a first aid kit, zip ties, and something wrapped in a black trash bag. He pulled it out, unwrapped it. A phone, cheap, prepaid, and a small black device the size of a deck of cards. What is that? Insurance. He powered it on, tapped the screen twice, and tossed it, and 20 yards to the left, into a thicket of laurel. What did you just do? Gave them something to chase. He handed her the Glock. You know how to use this? She stared at it. No. Safety's here. Point. Pull. It's got 6 rounds. Don't use it unless I'm dead. He met her eyes. And if I'm dead, Sienna, you empty the magazine and you run. Understand? She took the gun. It was heavier than she expected. Cold. I understand. Good girl. Shouts, distant but closing in. Dominic pulled her deeper into the woods. They ran, not sprinting, that would make noise, leave tracks, but a steady, ground-eating pace that kept them ahead of the voices behind them. The forest swallowed them whole, the mist thickening, turning the world into a smear of green and gray. Sienna's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But Dominic's hand stayed locked on hers, pulling her forward, and she didn't let go. Then he stopped, yanked her down behind a mossy outcrop of stone. What? He covered her mouth, and she heard it. Footsteps. Close. 2 sets. Moving slow, deliberate, sweeping the area. Can't have gone far, a voice muttered. Irish accent. Thick. Fucking Calvetti thinks he's clever. Shut up and search. They were 15 feet away, maybe less. Sienna pressed her back against the rock, the Glock trembling in her grip, and prayed. Dominic's hand moved to his cig. His face was stone, waiting. The footsteps came closer, closer. 10 feet. 5. A boot appeared around the edge of the rock, and Dominic moved. He was on the man before Sienna registered he'd left her side. One hand clamping over the mouth, the other driving the knife up under the ribs with surgical precision. No hesitation, no sound, just efficiency. The body dropped. The second man spun, raising his weapon. Dominic's cig barked twice, center mass, then head. The man fell like a puppet with cut strings. Silence. Dominic dragged the first body behind the rock, checked both for phones, wallets, took one of their radios, clipped it to his belt, then turned to Sienna. She was staring at the bodies, at the blood, at the way their eyes stared at nothing. Sienna. She couldn't look away. Sienna. His hand cupped her jaw firm, turning her face to his. They would have done worse to you. Do you understand? This isn't mercy. This is survival. Her voice was a whisper. How many people have you killed? He didn't blink. 32. And now? 34? The number sat between them like a third body. He released her, stepped back. We keep moving. 5 more minutes and we hit the fire road. There's a vehicle stashed a mile east. We get there, we disappear. Where? Somewhere they won't think to look. The radio on his belt crackled. Static. Then a voice, low and amused. Dominic Calvetti. I know you can hear me. Dominic's jaw tightened. You're good. I'll give you that. But you're not walking out of these woods. Neither is the girl. Sienna's stomach dropped. Who is that? Tell her, Dom. Tell her who put the bounty on her pretty little head. Dominic grabbed the radio, keyed the mic. Flannery. I, surprised? No, you've always been a rat. Laughter, sharp and humorless. Coming from the man who turned his back on his own family. That's rich. What do you want? The girl. Alive? Hand her over and you walk. You've got my word. Your word's worth shit. Then I guess we do this the hard way. A pause. You've got 20 men in these woods, Dom, and only 6 bullets left. Do the math. Dominic looked at Sienna, then keyed the mic one last time. Come find me. He dropped the radio, crushed it under his boot, and grabbed her hand. Run. They broke through the tree line 10 minutes later, gasping, soaked, legs shaking. The fire road was exactly where Dominic said it would be. A pale scar cutting through the forest, gravel and mud, disappearing into the mist. And parked 50 yards east, half hidden beneath a camouflage tarp. A Jeep Wrangler. Older model. Rusted along the wheel wells. License plates caked in mud. Dominic ripped the tarp off, unlocked it with a key he'd pulled from the duffel. "Get in." Sienna threw herself into the passenger seat. He started the engine. It roared to life, rough and loud, and gunned it. The Jeep fishtailed on the gravel, tires spitting mud, then caught traction and launched forward. Behind them, shouts. Then gunfire. Rounds punched through the rear window, spiderwebbing the glass. Sienna screamed, ducking, and Dominic yanked the wheel hard left, taking them off the road and into the underbrush. Branches scraped the sides. The suspension bucked and groaned. But he didn't slow. They crashed through the woods for 30 seconds that felt like hours, and then they were back on pavement. A narrow 2-lane road, slick with rain. Dominic floored it. The speedometer climbed. 60, 70, 80. Sienna twisted in her seat, looking back. 2 vehicles burst from the tree line behind them. The Suburban, the sedan. "They're following." "I know." He took a turn at 90, tires screaming, and Sienna grabbed the oh shit handle, heart in her throat. "You're going to kill us." "Not today." The road straightened, open fields on either side, nowhere to hide. The Suburban was gaining. Dominic reached under his seat, came up with something dark and metallic. A grenade. Sienna's eyes went wide. "Where did you get a grenade?" "Hold the wheel." "What?" "Hold it." She lunged across the center console, grabbing the wheel with both hands, and Dominic rolled down his window, pulled the pin with his teeth, and hurled it. The grenade hit the pavement, bounced once, and detonated. The explosion was a white-hot bloom that swallowed the road, and the Suburban drove straight into it. The vehicle flipped, end over end, a grotesque cartwheel of metal and flame, before crashing onto its side and skidding to a halt in a fountain of sparks. The sedan swerved, braked hard, stopped. Dominic took the wheel back, and Sienna collapsed into her seat, shaking, ears ringing. "Where did you get a grenade?" she whispered again. "I told you. I'm thorough." They ditched the Jeep 20 miles south, in a Walmart parking lot in Hamilton. Dominic hotwired a Honda Accord, gray, anonymous, a soccer mom car, and they were back on the road in under 3 minutes. Sienna sat in silence, staring at her hands. They were still shaking. "You okay?" Dominic asked, voice quieter now. She laughed. It came out sharp, jagged. "No. You did good back there." "I didn't do anything. You..." She stopped, swallowed. "You killed 5 people. 6, if you count the one in the cabin. How are you so calm?" He didn't answer right away. Just drove, eyes on the road, jaw tight. Then quietly, "Because if I'm not, you die. And I made a promise." Her throat ached. "To my mother." "Yes." "She's been dead 16 years, Dominic." "I know." "You don't owe her anything." His hands tightened on the wheel. "I owe her everything." The silence stretched. Then Sienna asked the question she'd been afraid to voice. "Who's paying the bounty? Who wants me alive badly enough to send 20 men into the woods?" Dominic's jaw worked. Then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his face went very still. "What?" Sienna whispered. He handed her the phone. On the screen, a text. 1 line. "The bounty isn't from the Irish, it's from your family." "L?" Sienna stared at it, the words not making sense. "My family? I don't have..." "Not the family you know." Dominic's voice was flat, hard. "The Calvettis." Her blood turned to ice. "Your family?" "Yes." "Why would they?" "Because someone in my family wants you alive." He took the phone back, his expression unreadable. "And there's only one reason. They do that?" "What reason?" He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw fear. "Because they know who your father was. South Philadelphia smelled like espresso and old sin. Sienna sat in the passenger seat of the stolen Honda, watching row houses slide past in shades of brick and iron. Narrow stoops, Virgin Mary statues in postage-stamp gardens, corner stores with hand-painted signs in Italian. The neighborhood had a weight to it, a density of history that pressed against the windows like fog. Dominic hadn't spoken in 40 minutes, not since he'd said those 6 words that had turned her entire existence inside out. Because they know who your father was. She'd asked him to explain. Begged, actually, voice climbing toward hysteria somewhere around exit 4 on the turnpike. But he'd just shaken his head, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, and said 2 words. Not yet. So she'd gone quiet. Watched the miles unspool. Tried not to think about the bodies in the woods, the grenade, the way Dominic had moved through violence like it was a second language. Tried not to think about her mother. Elena Cross. Elena, whoever the hell she really was. A woman Sienna had spent 16 years mourning, only to discover she'd never actually known her at all. The Honda turned onto a side street, narrow and tree-lined, and pulled to a stop in front of a brick row house with black shutters and flower boxes full of late-season mums. Neat, respectable, the kind of place where neighbors noticed strangers. Dominic killed the engine. Where are we? Sienna asked. Somewhere safe. You said that about the cabin? His jaw tightened. This is different. How? Because the woman who lives here is the only person in the world I trust. He met her eyes. And because she knew your mother better than anyone. Before Sienna could respond, the front door opened. A woman stepped onto the stoop. Mid-40s, maybe early 50s, with dark hair threaded with silver and pulled into a low bun. She wore black slacks and a cream sweater, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Elegant in the way that came from discipline, not money. Her eyes, sharp, dark, assessing, locked on the car, on Dominic, then on Sienna, and her hand flew to her mouth. Dominic opened his door. Stay close to me. Sienna followed him up the steps, legs unsteady, heart hammering. The woman's eyes never left her face. Madonna Santa, she whispered. Dominic. Does she know? No. And you brought her here anyway? I didn't have a choice, Lucia. Lucia. The name from the text. The woman, Lucia, looked at Sienna again, and something in her expression cracked. Grief, maybe, or recognition so profound it hurt. You have Elena's eyes, she said softly. Exactly. Sienna's throat tightened. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. Lucia stepped back, opening the door wider. Come inside, both of you. Quickly. The interior of the row house was a study in controlled elegance. Hardwood floors, polished to a low sheen. Furniture that looked antique but wasn't. Good replicas, chosen with care. A wall of bookshelves alphabetized. The smell of espresso and something baking. Classical music playing softly from a speaker Sienna couldn't see. A home, not a safe house. A home. Lucia locked the door behind them, 3 deadbolts, same as the cabin, and gestured toward the living room. Sit. I'll make coffee. Lucia, Dominic started. Coffee first, then we talk. Her voice was firm, not harsh, just immovable. You look like you haven't slept in days, and the girl looks like she's about to shatter. So, sit, drink. Then I'll tell her everything you're too much of a coward to say yourself. Dominic's jaw worked, but he didn't argue. They sat. Sienna perched on the edge of a sofa that was too comfortable, too normal, and wrapped her arms around herself. Dominic took the chair across from her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped, staring at the floor. Lucia returned with a tray, 3 tiny espresso cups, a plate of biscotti, sugar cubes in a porcelain dish. She served them in silence, then settled into the armchair beside Dominic's, folding her hands in her lap like a schoolteacher about to deliver bad news. How much have you told her? She asked Dominic. About Elena, about witness protection, about the bounty, and the rest? No, Lucia nodded slowly, then turned to Sienna. My name is Lucia Andretti. 20 years ago, I worked as a financial analyst for the Calvetti crime family. Money laundering, asset concealment, offshore accounts. Things that kept very dangerous men out of prison. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. Your mother, Elena Rossi, was my assistant. Sienna's hands tightened around the espresso cup. She was 23 when she started. Brilliant with numbers, quiet, kept her head down. And for 2 years, everything was fine. Lucia paused. Until she witnessed a murder. Dominic told me. Did he tell you whose murder? Sienna shook her head. Lucia glanced at Dominic. He didn't look up. It was Vincent Calabresi, underboss of the Calabresi family. He was killed in a restaurant in Newark, shot 3 times in the back of the head while eating osso buco. Lucia's voice softened. Elena was there. She'd been sent to deliver documents. Wrong place, wrong time. She saw the shooter's face. Who was he? Another glance at Dominic. Lucia sighed. Tomas Calvetti, Dominic's uncle. The room tilted. Sienna looked at Dominic. He still wasn't looking at her. Your family killed someone, and my mother saw it. Yes, Lucia said. So they put her in witness protection? Not exactly. Lucia leaned forward. The FB, I wanted her to testify, but Thomas Calvetti was, well, connected. Judges, prosecutors, police. Your mother would have been dead before she ever reached a courtroom. So the U.S. Marshals made a deal. New identity, new life, protection for her and her child. Me. Yes, Sienna's voice cracked, but she died anyway. Lucia's face softened with something that looked like old grief. She did. Dominic said it wasn't an accident. It wasn't. Then who killed her? Silence. Lucia looked at Dominic, waiting. He finally raised his head, and Sienna saw it in his eyes, the guilt, the weight, the thing he'd been carrying for 16 years. I don't know, he said quietly, but I have a theory. Tell me. He exhaled slowly. Your mother kept records, ledgers, everything she'd seen, everyone she'd worked with, every transaction that passed through the Calvetti accounts. Insurance, in case the marshals couldn't protect her. She told me about them once, years before she went into witness protection. Said if anything ever happened to her, those records would burn the whole family to the ground. Sienna's pulse quickened. Where are they? I don't know. She never told me, but someone in my family believes you know. I've never. It doesn't matter if you do or don't. They think you do, and that's why the bounty exists. His eyes were dark, hollowed out. They want you alive so you can lead them to the ledgers, and once they have them, you're a liability. The espresso cup trembled in her hands. Lucia reached over, steadied it. There's more, she said gently. Sienna laughed, sharp and bitter. Of course there is. Your mother didn't just keep financial records, Sienna. She kept personal ones. Diaries? Letters? Lucia hesitated. Including letters about your father. The air left the room. My father, Sienna repeated slowly. The man who raised me wasn't my father. Dominic told me that. So who was? Lucia looked at Dominic. He shook his head. Lucia, don't. She deserves to know. It's not confirmed. It's confirmed enough. Dominic's hands clenched into fists. Lucia turned back to Sienna, and her voice was very soft. Your mother had an affair. Brief, dangerous, with a man she shouldn't have been involved with. Who? Marco Calvetti. The name hit like a fist. Dominic's brother. Lucia continued. Head of the Calvetti family. The Don? Sienna couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. That's impossible. Elena wrote about it. Dates, places, everything. She was terrified because if Thomas found out, if anyone found out, she'd be killed. Affairs within the family were complicated. Deadly even. Lucia's eyes were sad. She ended it before anyone knew, but by then she was pregnant. With me? Yes. Sienna stood. The room spun. No, that's... You're saying a mafia boss is my father. We believe so, Lucia said. Does he know? We don't think so. Elena never told him. She disappeared into witness protection before she started showing. But, Lucia hesitated, someone might have figured it out. Who? Dominic stood too, his voice low and dangerous. That's what we need to find out. Sienna turned on him, fury rising like a tidal wave. You knew. This whole time, you knew. And you didn't tell me? I didn't know for sure. Bullshit. Sienna, you've been lying to me since the moment you dragged me into that car. Her voice broke. You said you were protecting me because of my mother, but it's not about her, is it? It's about him, about your family, about whatever sick game you people play with each other. It's not a game. Dominic's voice cut through hers like a blade. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to find out the woman I loved had a child with my brother? The words hung in the air, raw and bleeding. Sienna stared at him. You loved her. Yes. And she chose him. His jaw tightened. Yes. So what am I to you, Dominic? A reminder? A punishment? You're innocent. His voice was rough, scraped raw. And I won't let you die for their sins. The silence was suffocating. Lucia cleared her throat softly. There's something else you need to see. She stood, moved to the bookshelf, and pulled down a leather-bound journal. Old, worn at the edges. She handed it to Sienna. Your mother's diary, the last one she kept before she died. Sienna's hand shook as she opened it. The handwriting was delicate, slanted, unfamiliar, and achingly intimate. She flipped to a random page. March 12th, 2008. Sienna asked about her father today. She's only 7, but she's so smart. Too smart. I told her the same lie I always tell. That he loved us but couldn't stay. That sometimes love isn't enough. I wanted to tell her the truth. That her father doesn't know she exists. That I ran before he could find out. Because men like Marco Calvetti don't have children. They have heirs. And I won't let her be a pawn in that world. Dominic called again. 3rd time this week. I didn't answer. I can't. Every time I hear his voice, I remember who I used to be. And I can't go back. Sienna deserves better than the wreckage I left behind. Sienna's vision blurred. She flipped forward, hands, trembling. June 4th, 2008? Someone's been following me. I'm sure of it now. A black car, 2 men. They don't approach, just watch. I called my handler, but he says I'm paranoid. Says witness protection is solid. But I know these people. I worked for them. And I know what it means when they watch instead of act. They're waiting for something. I need to move the ledgers. Hide them somewhere even I can't find them easily. Somewhere Sienna will only know to look if something happens to me. God, I hope I'm wrong. The last entry was dated June 18th, 2008. 3 days before Elena died. June 18th, 2008. If you're reading this, Sienna, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry. The key is where we used to hide treasures. You'll remember. Find the ledgers. Give them to Dominic. No one else. He's the only one I trust to keep you safe. Your father's name is Marco Calvetti. I don't know if he'll claim you, and I don't know if you should let him. But you deserve to know the truth. I loved you more than I ever loved anything, even my own life. Run, baby, and don't look back. Sienna closed the journal. Her face was wet. She hadn't realized she was crying. Lucia's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face went pale. When? A pause. Are you sure? Another pause. I understand. She hung up, looked at Dominic. That was my contact at the Port Authority. Marco Calvetti just landed at Newark. He's coming here. Dominic's expression went lethal. How does he know? I don't know, but he's 20 minutes out. Sienna's heart stopped. My father. Yes, Lucia said quietly. Dominic grabbed Sienna's arm. We're leaving. No. Sienna pulled free. I want to meet him. Sienna. He's my father. He's a killer, a mobster. He's like you? Dominic flinched. Sienna turned to Lucia. Will he hurt me? Lucia considered. Not if he believes you're his daughter. And if he doesn't believe it? Silence. Then Dominic, voice flat. Then I kill him before he touches you. He's your brother. And you're all I have left of her. The doorbell rang. All three of them froze. Lucia moved to the window, peered through the curtain. A black Mercedes. 2 men in suits on the stoop. And behind them, a man in a tailored overcoat. Tall. Silver at the temples. The kind of face that belonged on currency. Lucia's voice was barely a whisper. It's him. Sienna's hands clenched into fists. Let him in. Dominic moved between her and the door. Sienna. Let him in. The doorbell rang again. Lucia looked at Dominic. He nodded once. She opened the door, and Marco Calvetti stepped inside. He was older than Sienna expected. 50 maybe. But he carried it well. Sharp suit, polished shoes, the kind of presence that made rooms rearrange themselves around him. His eyes were dark, calculating. And when they landed on Sienna, they went very, very still. He stared at her for 5 seconds, then looked at Dominic. She has Elena's eyes. Dominic's voice was ice. I know. Marco's gaze returned to Sienna, searching, measuring. What's your name? Sienna. Her voice didn't shake. She wouldn't let it. Sienna Cross. Cross. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The name they gave her in witness protection. You knew about that? I know a lot of things, Sienna. He stepped closer. Dominic's hand moved to his weapon, but Marco ignored him. I know your mother kept records that could destroy my family. I know someone put a bounty on your head. And I know... He paused. I know Elena Rossi and I had a very brief, very complicated relationship 29 years ago. Sienna's heart hammered. Are you my father? Marco tilted his head. That's what I came here to find out. He pulled a small kit from his coat pocket. Medical. Sterile swab inside. DNA test. Results in 6 hours. If you're mine, you're under my protection. No one will touch. You? The bounty dies. And if I'm not? His expression didn't change. Then you're Dominic's problem. Dominic's voice was a growl. She's not a problem. She's a variable. Marco's eyes stayed on Sienna. So, do we do this the easy way? Or do I have my men take the sample by force? Lucia stepped forward. Marco, she's a child. She's 29, and she's sitting on information that could put me in prison for life. His voice was calm, clinical. So forgive me if I'm not feeling paternal until I have proof. Sienna stepped forward, chin up. Do it. Marco raised an eyebrow. You're sure? I want to know the truth as much as you do. He handed her the swab. She opened her mouth, let him take the sample, watching his face the whole time. He sealed it in the kit, pocketed it. 6 hours, he said. I'll call. He turned to leave, then stopped, looked back at Sienna. For what it's worth, I hope you're mine. Elena deserved better than the life I gave her. Maybe you can have the one she didn't. And then he was gone. The door closed. Sienna stood frozen, breath coming in short gasps. Dominic moved to her side. You okay? She laughed. It sounded broken. No. Good. You shouldn't be. He guided her to the sofa, and this time she let him. Now we wait. And if the test says he's my father? Dominic's jaw tightened. Then I lose you to him. And if it says he's not? His eyes met hers. Then I kill anyone who tries to take you. Lucia's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and her face went white. Dominic? What? The bounty. Her voice shook. It just tripled, and the contract's been updated. Updated how? She turned the phone toward him. On the screen, a single line. Sienna Cross. Alive only. Payment on delivery to Calvetti Estate. Dominic read it, then crushed the phone in his fist. They're not waiting for the test results. Who's not? Sienna whispered. He looked at her, and she saw murder in his eyes. Someone in my family already knows the truth, and they want you dead before Marco finds out. The call came at 3:47 a.m. Sienna jerked awake on Lucia's sofa, disoriented, heart racing. The house was dark except for a thin line of light beneath the kitchen door. She could hear voices, low, tense, controlled. Dominic and Lucia. She sat up, every muscle stiff from 6 hours of fitful half-sleep, and pressed her ear to the door. Can't be sure it's him, Lucia was saying. It's him. Dominic's voice was flat, certain. Thomas has been circling this for years. He knew about Elena and Marco. He's the one who had her killed. You don't have proof? I don't need proof. I need to get Sienna out of Philadelphia before the test results come back. And go where? Marco will expect her at the estate if she's his daughter. If she runs, it looks like she's guilty. She's guilty of being born into this nightmare, that's all. Silence. Then Lucia, softer. You care about her. I made a promise. This isn't about Elena anymore, Dominic. You know that. A pause. Long. Enough that Sienna held her breath. It doesn't matter what I feel. She deserves a life outside this family. Outside me. And if she doesn't want that? She doesn't know what she wants. She's been running for a week. The door opened. Dominic stood there, phone in hand, eyes dark and unreadable. He'd heard her listening. How much did you catch? He asked quietly. Enough. Sienna stepped into the kitchen. Lucia was at the table, laptop open, surrounded by maps and notes. Who's Thomas? My uncle, Marco's younger brother. Dominic set the phone down. He runs enforcement for the family. Officially. Unofficially, he's been trying to take over for 20 years. And you think he killed my mother? I think he found out about you. Found out Marco had a child he didn't know about. And realized that if you ever surfaced, you'd be a threat to his position. Sienna's voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. Because I'd be Marco's heir. Yes. But Marco doesn't even know if I'm his yet. Doesn't matter. Tomas doesn't take chances. Dominic crossed his arms. The bounty tripling, the order to bring you to the estate, it's him. He's going to kill you and make it look like an accident or a betrayal, something Marco can't tie back to him. Then we go to Marco, tell him he won't believe us without evidence, and Thomas has spent 2 decades covering his tracks. Dominic's jaw tightened. But there's one thing he can't erase. The ledgers? Yes. Lucia looked up from the laptop. If Elena documented everything, including whatever Thomas did to her, it's in those ledgers, but we still don't know where they are. Sienna closed her eyes, thinking, the key is where we used to hide treasures. You'll remember. Her mother's last words. Where we used to hide treasures. She was 7 when her mother died. They'd lived in a small apartment in Newark before witness protection, before Florida, before everything changed. Sienna had vague memories. A narrow kitchen, a fire escape where her mother grew tomatoes in coffee cans, a closet that smelled like cedar and lavender, and a game. Her mother used to hide things for her to find. Quarters, candy, little notes that said, "I love you," in looping script. There was a loose floorboard, Sienna said slowly, in my bedroom closet, in Newark. We used to hide things there. She called it our treasure spot. Dominic and Lucia exchanged a look. The apartment's still there, Lucia said. Condemned now. Building's set for demolition next month. Then that's where we go. Dominic was already moving, grabbing his coat. We get the ledgers, we get proof, and we end this. Dominic. Lucia stood. If Thomas knows about the ledgers, if he's had 16 years to find them, he hasn't, or we'd all be dead already. He looked at Sienna. Your mother was smart. She hid them somewhere only you could find. Somewhere that required a child's memory, not an investigator's logic. Sienna grabbed her jacket. Then let's go get them. Newark at 4 a.m. was a study in abandonment. The building where Sienna had spent the first 7 years of her life stood on a block that looked like the apocalypse had come and gone quietly. Boarded windows, graffiti-tagged doors, chain-link fencing with condemned signs zip-tied every 10 feet. Dominic cut through the fence with bolt cutters he'd pulled from the trunk of yet another stolen car. A Camry this time, gray and anonymous. They slipped through. The lobby was a tomb, broken tile, water damage blooming across the ceiling like mold. The elevator was a dark shaft behind pried-open doors. Stairs, Dominic said. They climbed. 3rd floor. The hallway was worse than the lobby. Drywall hanging in sheets, doors kicked in. The smell of rot and old rain. Sienna's chest tightened. Which one? Dominic asked. 3C. The door was still there, hanging crooked on one hinge. Sienna pushed. It opened and stepped into a memory. The apartment was gutted, walls stripped, fixtures gone. But the layout was the same. Kitchen to the left, living room straight ahead, and down a short hallway. Her bedroom. She moved toward it, feet crunching on broken plaster. Dominic stayed close, weapon drawn, scanning corners. The bedroom was smaller than she remembered. Empty. The closet door was missing entirely. Sienna knelt, running her hands over the floor. Most of the boards were rotted, swollen from water damage. But in the back corner, her fingers found it, a board that didn't quite sit, flush with the others. She pried it up. Underneath, wrapped in layers of plastic garbage bags, a metal lockbox. Sienna's hands trembled as she pulled it out. Dominic. He was beside her in an instant. The box was small, fireproof, locked. Do you have the key? He asked. Sienna shook her head, then paused. Reached into her pocket, pulled out the necklace she'd worn since childhood. A cheap silver chain with a tiny key pendant. She'd always thought it was decorative. She'd never tried to use it. She slid the key into the lock. It turned. The box opened. Inside, 3 leather-bound ledgers, a stack of photographs, and a letter, sealed in an envelope with Sienna's name written in her mother's handwriting. Dominic pulled out one of the ledgers, flipped it open. Pages and pages of transactions. Names, dates, accounts, wire transfers, shell companies, and in the margins, notes in Elena's handwriting. Thomas Calvetti, skimming $200,000 per month. Offshore account, Caymans. Vincent Calabresi, hit ordered by Thomas, approved by Marco, under duress. Thomas meeting with Flaherty, Irish? Setting up Marco for Fed investigation? Dominic's face went hard as stone. This is it. This is everything. Sienna opened the envelope. My darling Sienna, if you're reading this, I've run out of time. I'm so sorry. Sorry I couldn't tell you the truth. Sorry I couldn't give you a normal life. Sorry I brought you into a world where love is a weapon and family is a battlefield. Your father is Marco Calvetti. I don't expect you to forgive me for keeping that from you. But I need you to understand. I didn't tell him because I wanted to protect you. Men like Marco don't have children. They have heirs, pawns, leverage. And you, my sweet girl, were never going to be anyone's pawn. The ledgers in this box contain proof of everything Thomas Calvetti has done. Theft, murder, conspiracy. He killed Vincent Calabrese to start a war. He's been undermining Marco for years. And when he found out about you, about us, he tried to have me killed. The brake lines in my car were cut 3 days ago. I've been driving carefully, but I know it's only a matter of time. Give these ledgers to Dominic. He's the only one who'll know what to do with them. The only one I trust. And if Marco wants to know you, if he's the man I hope he can be, let him try. You deserve a father who'll fight for you. But if he's not, run, baby. Run and don't look back. I love you more than words, more than life. Mom Sienna's vision blurred. She folded the letter carefully, hands shaking, and slipped it into her jacket. We need to move, Dominic said quietly. If Thomas has people watching. Glass shattered in the living room. Dominic spun, weapon up. Footsteps, multiple. Down, he hissed. Sienna dropped behind the remnants of a wall. 3 men entered the apartment. Tactical gear, suppressed weapons, not cops, not feds, family. Dominic fired twice. 2 men dropped. The third dove behind the kitchen counter, returning fire. Rounds punched through drywall, spitting dust. Dominic moved like smoke, fast, silent, flanking left. Another shot. Silence. He reappeared, breathing hard. Clear, but there'll be more. We need to go. Now. They ran. Down the stairs, 3 at a time, the lockbox clutched against Sienna's chest. Burst through the lobby, dour into the pre-dawn dark, and froze. 6 SUVs, blocking both ends of the street. Men stepping out, a dozen, maybe more, and standing in the center lit by headlights. Thomas Calvetti, older than Marco, leaner, a face like a hatchet. He smiled. Dominic, niece. So good of you to make this easy. Dominic's gun came up. Thomas raised a hand. I wouldn't. You're outnumbered 12-1, and I'd hate to deprive my brother of meeting his daughter. You're going to kill her anyway, Dominic said flatly. Eventually. But first, she's going to give me those ledgers, and then she's going to disappear. Car accident, maybe, just like her mother. Thomas's smile widened. Poetic, don't you think? Sienna stepped forward. You killed her. I made a problem go away. Nothing personal. She was a person. My mother. She was a witness, and a whore who spread her legs for my brother and thought she could hide the consequences. Thomas's voice was ice. You're just the loose end. I should have tied off 29 years ago. Dominic's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance, Thomas. Walk away. Or what? You'll kill me? Your own uncle? Thomas laughed. You don't have the stones, boy. You never did. That's why you'll never be. A gunshot. Not from Dominic, from behind Tomas. The older man jerked, eyes wide, hand going to his chest. Blood bloomed across his white shirt. He turned. Marco Calvetti stood 10 feet away, weapon raised, face carved from granite. You talk too much, Thomas. Thomas dropped to his knees, gasping. Marco, she's not... You don't know... I know you killed Elena Russi. I know you've been stealing from the family for 20 years, and I know you just tried to murder my daughter. The test came back an hour ago. Marco's voice was death. 99.7% match. She's mine. He fired again. Thomas collapsed. The street went silent. Marco lowered his weapon, looking at his men. Anyone else have a problem with my daughter? No one moved. He turned to Sienna, studied her face for a long moment, then held out his hand. The ledgers. Sienna clutched the box tighter. Dominic stepped between them. Marco. Stand down, Dominic. Marco's eyes didn't leave Sienna's. She's family now. That means she's under my protection. But it also means she plays by family rules. He tilted his head. The ledgers, Sienna, please. She looked at Dominic. He gave the smallest nod. She handed the box to Marco. He opened it, scanned the first ledger. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Your mother was thorough. She was smart, Sienna said. She was. He closed the box. These stay with me, insurance, to make sure no one ever comes after you again. And Dominic? Marco glanced at his brother. What about him? He saved my life, multiple times. I'm aware. Marco's voice was unreadable. He also kept you from me for a week. He kept me alive, Marco considered, then nodded slowly. Dominic, you're off the leash. Consider your debt to Elena paid in full. Dominic's jaw tightened. I don't want off the leash. I want her safe. She will be. With me. Like hell. Dominic. Sienna touched his arm. He went still. She looked at Marco. I'll come with you. On one condition. Marco raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to negotiate. I'm your daughter. That gives me some leverage. She lifted her chin. Dominic stays with me as my bodyguard, advisor, whatever you want to call it. But he stays. Marco studied her, then Dominic. A slow smile crossed his face. You have your mother's spine? He nodded. Fine. Dominic stays. But you live at the estate. You learn the business. And you accept that you're a Calvetti now. I'm a Cross. You're both? Marco's voice softened just slightly. And maybe that's not such a bad thing. He turned, gestured to his men. Clean this up. I want Tomas's people rounded up. By noon. Anyone who had a hand in the bounty answers to me personally. The men scattered. Marco looked back at Sienna. There's a car waiting. We have a lot to talk about. He walked away. Sienna turned to Dominic. His face was unreadable. You okay? She asked. I should be asking you that. I just found out my father's a mob boss who killed his own brother in front of me. I'm processing. A ghost of a smile. That's fair. And you? You just got dragged back into the family you left. I didn't leave for me. He looked at her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. I left because I couldn't protect her, your mother, and I swore I'd never fail someone I... He stopped, swallowed. Someone important. Again. Dominic, you're safe now. That's what matters. Is it? He didn't answer. She stepped closer. You said you made a promise to my mother? That you'd protect what mattered to her. Yes. You kept it. I did. So what now? He was quiet, for a long time. Then so softly she almost didn't hear it. Now I figure out if I'm allowed to want something for myself. Her heart stuttered. And what do you want? His eyes met hers. Ask me again in 6 months, when you've had time to breathe, to live, to be something other than a target. He touched her cheek, just once, calloused fingers gentle. You deserve that, Sienna. You deserve everything. He stepped back, turned to leave. Dominic. He stopped. I'm not going anywhere. He looked over his shoulder. I know. I mean it. 6 months, a year, however long it takes. She smiled, small and fierce. You're stuck with me. Something in his expression cracked. Not quite a smile, but close. That's what I'm afraid of. and then he was gone, disappearing into one of the SUVs. Sienna stood alone on the street as the sun began to rise, the ledgers in Marco's hands, her mother's letter against her heart. And for the first time in a week, maybe the first time in her life, she wasn't running. 6 months later, the Calvetti estate sat on 20 acres in Alpine, New Jersey, all stone and iron and old money. Sienna had a wing to herself, an office, a role in the family business, legitimate operations only, Marco had promised, and so far he'd kept his word. She'd learned the names, the faces, the way power moved through rooms like a living thing. She'd also learned that being Marco Calvetti's daughter came with weight, expectation, danger that never quite disappeared. But Dominic had stayed, not in the house. He'd taken an apartment in Fort Lee, close enough to reach her in under 10 minutes. He showed up most mornings, drank coffee in her office, argued with Marco about security protocols. And sometimes, when the house was quiet and the weight felt too heavy, he sat with her in the garden and said nothing at all. Today, he found her there, sitting on a stone bench, her mother's diary open in her lap. "Reading that again?" he asked. She looked up. "She loved you, you know, in her own way." He sat beside her. "I know. Do you ever regret it, that she chose Marco instead?" "Every day." He paused. "And not at all. How does that work?" "Because if she'd chosen me, you wouldn't exist." He met her eyes. "And that would be the real tragedy." Her breath caught. "Dominic, 6 months," he said quietly. "You told me to ask in 6 months." "I did. So I'm asking." He turned to face her fully. "Are you breathing yet, Sienna? Are you living?" She closed the diary, set it aside. "I'm getting there." "Good." He stood. "Then I'll ask again in another 6 months." "Or," she said, standing too, "you could ask me now." He went still. "What would you say?" She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him, the solid, unshakable presence that had been her only constant in a world turned upside down. "I'd say you've been keeping me safe for 16 years, Dominic Calvetti. Maybe it's time someone kept you." His hand came up, cupping her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "You sure about this?" "I'm my mother's daughter. I don't do anything I'm not sure about." He smiled, a real one this time, and kissed her, soft, careful, like she was something precious. When they pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. "Your father's going to kill me." "Probably." "Was it worth it?" She smiled against his mouth. "Ask me in 6 months. Some debts can't be paid. Some debts become something else entirely. And some promises, kept across 16 years, 3 states, and a lifetime of violence, turn into the only thing worth keeping at all. A future, a choice, a love that was always there, waiting in the shadows, until the right moment to step into the light." If this story hit you in the chest, do me a favor. Subscribe, like, comment. Tell me where you're watching from